It is Better Country 101.7 The Bull. Thanks for hanging out with us here as we are getting ready for Midwest Old Threshers Reunion in Mount Pleasant. Boy, it's going to be a good time, and I know it's going to be a good time, especially on Saturday as we're hanging out with the guys of LOCASH. At least half of the guys of LOCASH. Preston Brust is joining us. He's one half of LOCASH, and he's kind enough to join us here. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good this morning. How y'all doing?
Hey, man, we're doing real good, and we're excited for your show coming up at Threshers, so we appreciate the time. You guys have been doing this for quite a while. Folks might not realize you've been around the business for about 15 years, 15 or more years, but it took you guys about a good 10 years before, I Love This Life. That was kind of the big hit that you had that took off and made you guys a household name. And I got a story about that song here in just a second, but what was that experience like when I Love This Life started taking off after about, 5, 6, 7 years of trying in the country music business?
Man, it's like a movie, to be honest. I mean, we had tried so many times to get a song on the radio and to get it to climb the charts. And then all of a sudden, here's this little train that could. It's a song called I Love This Life. And we had a feeling about it. There were some other artists that were going to record the song. And at the last second, because we had a Keith Urban hit that went number one, and we had a Tim McGraw song that went number one. And so, we started having feelings about different songs. We're like, this one very well could be a big hit for us. And so we kept it. And we put it on the radio, and when it got to 40, we were like, man, this is pretty cool. It's starting to climb the charts. And then it got to 30 and 20, 10, 5. And then all of a sudden you make a number one run and you're like, man, this is pretty crazy. It's actually happening.
It is happening, and you guys have been going there ever since. I still remember hearing that song for the very first time. I was sitting in a video editing bay up in Wisconsin. I had YouTube going, and I ran to the bathroom, came back, autoplay, pulled that song up, and I was like, who on earth are these guys? I have to hear more. I've been hooked ever since. Was that kind of the reaction that you guys got from people? Were there a lot of people kind of asking who you guys were? And then what were their reaction when you said, hey, we've been doing this since like 2008. Where have you guys been?
I know. You're like, what rock have you been under, y'all? It's like, it kind of feels like instead of where were y'all this whole time, it feels like, you know what? All the hard work is starting to pay off. And that's what this journey's been like for us. I mean, there was an old show on TV called VH1 Behind the Music, and it just kind of, it felt like I Love This Life was the big commercial break, cliffhanger, and then all of a sudden light comes through the window, and all of a sudden I Know Somebody goes number one, and then Ring on Every Finger runs up the chart. Now you got 3 big hits on your hands, ding, 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 and the rest is history. So it just felt good to take everybody on the journey with us, all the fans that had been there before, new fans. And, I mean, even last night, we were in San Diego last night, and we had folks come up and said, man, I've never been to a LOCASH show before. This is my first LOCASH show. And so, every single night you're gaining new fans, and you're starting to, pick up a little more steam than you had before.
We're talking to Preston Brust. He is half of the guys of LOCASH who are going to be at this year's Midwest Old Threshers Reunion in Mount Pleasant. We talked about this a little bit before. In those years leading up to I Love This Life, which really got you guys going, you guys wrote some stuff. You mentioned them. The song for Keith Urban, You're Gonna Fly. Tim McGraw's Truck, Yeah. What's that feeling like when megastars in the business look at a song that you guys wrote or co-wrote in this instance and said, I want to do that? What goes through your mind when that's going on?
Yeah, well, you kind of freak out a little bit because it's a big moment. I mean, everybody in town is trying to write a song for anybody to cut, let alone a superstar like Keith Urban or Tim McGraw. And like when they finally go in the studio and they actually cut the song and it actually makes it on the album and it becomes a single and then it starts going up the charts, there's a lot of little victories that you have to celebrate along the way because you could write a song and Tim McGraw loves it and then he puts it on the album, but it never becomes a single. So it's a great feat and it's a huge accomplishment, but it's never going to be a number one. And so for all those things to line up, it's like all the stars have to align. And you go all the way back to the day that you write the song. You sit down to write the song, and the stars begin to align that very day. And then, then somebody hears the song and says, I'm going to play this for Tim. And then Tim likes it. And then Tim takes it to the studio, and they record it, and it turns out great. And then they take it to the label, and there's a pile of songs, and then your song gets picked to be on the album along with 10 or 12 others or 15 others. Who knows how many songs are going on the album. And then the marketing team gets involved with the label, and then someone says, I think this should be the first single or the second single. There's only going to be about 3 singles. And so you're looking at this big pile of songs of 10 or 11 songs, and you have to pray at this point that your song is going to be one of the singles. And then when it becomes one of the singles, how hard are they going to work? How hard are they going to push? Is there going to be, lightning around that song? Is it just going to take off? Is it going to be huge? And so I remember the day Tim McGraw put out Truck Yeah. It became overnight his highest debuting song on the chart of his entire career. And this is a guy that's had 100 number ones.
Right.
And here we are. We've just written a song that became his highest debuting song his entire career. So those are moments that you got to just stop, and you got to thank God and hug your friends and your family and say we've done something big here. This is huge. And then it's icing on the cake when the song starts taking off up the chart and it hits number 1. Man, I tell you what, that's when you're going to be able to put food on the plate and pay all your bills and start over again. Do it again.
Do it all over again. We're talking to Preston Brust, one half of the guys of LOCASH here on 101.7 The Bull. Kind of in that same breath, you guys did a song here a couple years back, a song called Beach Boys, and you even got members of the Beach Boys to help you guys out with that track. I'm guessing those guys were a major influence to you two as a duo. If that's the case, what was it like getting to work with those guys?
Man, we both grew up on the Beach Boys, and I'm from a town called Kokomo, Indiana, so we kind of adopted the song Kokomo and acted like that was about our town. But, we're up in the Midwest in Indiana, so it was definitely not about my Kokomo. But so it was, when we wrote the song, we intended on the Beach Boys being on it. It's like a pipe dream at that point. You write the song and you're like, man, what if the Beach Boys actually heard this? And then they actually call. And, we sound like a bunch of 15-year-old garage band guys, saying this stuff. But you got to have dreams like that, and you got to see it before it actually happens. And then so we write the song, and we record the song, and Mike Love heard the song, and lead singer of the Beach Boys. And he called me up one day out of the blue and said, hey, this is Mike from the Beach Boys. And I'm like, no way, on my phone. And I was sitting in the driveway. I'll never forget it. And he said, man, we just heard the song Beach Boys that you guys wrote, and we love it. And I was like, man, thank you so much. And it was his idea to actually be on the song with us.
Really?
Yeah, because, I didn't know even how to ask that. I wanted to ask him, but at the end of the phone call, we talked for about 30 minutes about life and music and our families and all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the call, he said, man, we'd love to be on that song with you guys somehow. And so we put it all together. And we went to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to a Beach Boys show. And we set up shop backstage in a dressing room. We set up the studio, because that's kind of what you can do these days. Technology has come so far. And so we set up a little, portable studio backstage. And one by one, the Beach Boys come in and lay down their parts. And it was incredible. And then right after that, it was dinner time and then showtime. And we're watching the Beach Boys perform a concert right after they just sang a song backstage to be on our album. And it was incredible. And that led to, going on tour with them and doing a lot of shows together and events together. And now they've become like big brothers, and we talk all the time.
That's awesome, man. We're talking to Preston Brust, one half of the guys at LOCASH, going to be at Midwest Old Threshers Reunion. You guys yourself, you're staying busy. You got a new track out to country radio. It's called Hometown Home. Talk a little bit about that track, what you're hoping listeners can maybe get from when they listen to that song. And is it part of a new album you guys are working on?
Yeah, it is part of a big new album that's coming out this fall. We don't have the exact date yet, but it'll probably be in October that the whole album drops. But Hometown Home is the lead single. And, Chris and I decided we were going to take our career back into our own hands and hold the reins ourselves and be responsible for what happens in our own lives. And so we left our current record label that we were on amicably. I mean, we're all still friends, and we launched our own record label called Galaxy Records. And so with the launch of the new label, we had to have a new single coming out. And so we write the song Hometown Home, and we're like, this might be a big hit. I mean, it feels good. And so we put it out to radio, and we hired our own team and our own marketing. And now there's digital teams and there's social media teams and there's all these things. But we did all the things that we needed to do. And we aligned our troops. We forged ahead, and now we've got the fastest rising single of our entire career on our hands. It's already in the 40s. It's only been out a couple months. And I'm sitting here looking at our manager, Skip, and he's on the phone with radio stations and conglomerates and, and just, kind of weaving the web, the crazy thing we call the music industry and pulling it all together. And it's happening. It's wild.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about it. I did want to ask you a little bit about that record label you guys launched, Galaxy Label Group, in partnership with Studio to Be Entertainment. What's that experience been like? I know you touched on it a little bit. And then is there any names that you guys have maybe signed on that we should be on the lookout for?
Man, I wish we could tell you who we're looking at. We haven't signed anybody yet,
Okay.
But that's the fun part. I mean, it's like, you go through this whole career and you're like, man, if I was a big record label, CEO, I would sign that artist right there. Well, then when it comes down to it, now you got to put your money where your mouth is. I mean, if you're going to sign somebody, and especially Chris and I, who have been put through the ringer in this industry, It's like we want to be able to treat that artist awesome. We want to show them the path that's well lit all the way to the top. And so we want to make sure they have the talent. They have the drive. They have the determination. They have the songwriting. They have the fortitude to get through the tough times, because the music industry, I don't care who you are. I don't care how big of a star you are. There's tough times out there. And so we got to find that person or that group or that duo or that band. And we've kind of narrowed it down to a few, but we're still on the lookout. So, if you're listening to this interview right now and you think you got it, reach out to us. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, how cool would that be to get a little partnership with the guys at LOCASH? You never know. We're talking to Preston Brust. He is one half of the guys of LOCASH. They'll be at this year's Midwest Old Threshers Reunion. One more question for you, Preston. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We're excited to have you at this year's Old Threshers Reunion in Mount Pleasant. For folks who are going to your show, maybe this will be a first time, maybe it'll be a return trip. But what can people expect when you guys take the stage there Saturday night?
Man, that crowd is always wild. Y'all are always crazy. We love coming there and performing. And there's a feeling right now. We're out on the Kane Brown tour doing stadiums right now. And so, but we love coming to Old Threshers and that feeling of that, small town and getting out there with the folks and drinking together and getting our hands up together and singing along. And you guys just always show up. And so, even though we're out on that stadium tour right now, it's gonna feel like kind of like the end of summer is winding down, but we get to experience that with you guys one more time before fall comes. And so I think that's what we're most looking forward to, is just getting out there and letting off some steam and watching y'all just smile and sing along. It's gonna be a party.
It is, and we're excited to have you guys. He's one half of the guys of LOCASH, Preston Brust, joining us here. Looking forward to your show there, Preston. Thanks for taking the time, man. We do appreciate it.
Always. I appreciate you, Wyatt.